Right. My God. Thick and fast, thick and fast, thick and fast.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Gram Risings, everybody. Could I? Oh, they're still coming. Michelle, she's come. This is good. This is good. This is good. Gram Risings, everybody. It's 9:31, at least here in the United Kingdom. My apologies to anyone caught up in the time zone trap that our controllers have kindly put in place. It's one part the control mechanism, it's one part me being an absolute dullard. But manifestly, I got it wrong, for which I apologize. Rachel is perfection. She didn't do anything wrong. It was all me.
Cool.
So, could I ask everybody to mute themselves? I'm going to go around muting people, which I assure you is not an act of oppression. It is merely an act of practicality. So we can be heard ultimately. Not that I've got anything valuable to say, but we'll hand over to the main event and the talent in about 3 to 5 minutes. So, to anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Ben Hawkes. I'm a co-founder of the Lay Love Down movement with the lovely Rachel Vaughan. In the Genesis story, which of course they'll make a film about, which you guys will all star in because you're the first 35. Rachel will talk of me as her English gentleman, was it? Or English man? Was it gentleman? Yeah, there we go. Which makes me feel
Gentleman.
great.
Definitely
Like,
gentleman.
well, I come from a housing estate in actually one of the nicest parts of London, but a housing estate nonetheless. So gentleman, good English, absolutely. So I was thinking this morning, preparing for this meeting, which is all the preparation I do is basically in the 5 minutes before I do anything. As you get to know me and work with me, you'll find that out. I was an army reservist for a time. I was in uniform for about 11, 12 years. And
Hmm.
military, for all its failings, are exceptionally good at communicating the aim. And that's obviously quite important because when you're communicating the aim to people in a situation which is quite robust, quite crunchy, quite noisy, lots of lights, lots of explosions, it needs to be clear. So I was thinking this morning about what it is we're trying to do here, because there is a danger with this sort of thing that it can be quite fluffy, which is fine because love is fluffy, but love is also robust. Love can also be used to win, and we need to be clear about what it is we're doing. So this morning, Rachel and I have put together the mission, method, and end state statements for Lay Love Down. And I want everybody to imprint this into their psyche at the soul and DNA level, whether you've been spliced or not. We all have, we know that. 95% junk DNA. What an absolute laugh. None of it's junk. So, mission, method, and end state for Lay Love Down. The mission should be familiar to you all, which is save the ley lines, save the world. We know that we've won already, but we've only won because of what we're about to do. And if that messes with your mind, I completely understand. But the mission, lay,
Okay.
save the lay, save the ley lines, save the world. Now, in a briefing, we always say that twice. So, mission, save the ley lines, save the world. I repeat, save the ley lines, save the world. So that's why we're here. The method, very simple. Charge the leys with positive energy, i.e. love. So that's the method. Charge the ley lines, charge the leys with positive energy, i.e. love. We don't go into details there. How you do it is up to you. But that is the method. Charge the leys with positive energy, i.e. love. And the end state, what it is we're all going for. And remember, we can create this through our doing as well as our being. So fix it in your minds. This is the start of a collective consciousness. 36 plus 2, 38 is dark to light. That's it. That's the ball game. So we're in this for the species. I think that came from Independence Day, or maybe Starship Troopers. Not particularly sure, but that's what we're here for. End state, dark to light. So mission, save the ley lines, save the world. Method, charge the leys with positive energy, i.e. love. End state, dark to light. So raise a fist of glory if you understand that and you get that. I don't see any fists of glory. Raise them high. Let's do this. Fantastic. Thank you very much. God bless you all. No, not God bless you. Bless you. Be less to you. Go well all. Right. So that's it from me. I've had 5 minutes of blessed silence. There's builders next door. So I'm going to mute myself shortly. I'm going to make Rachel host. But the idea here today is to equip you all with a base level. Well, that's for me. You guys an advanced level of skill to understand the lays, be able to see them, identify them, be cognizant of them, and then what you bloody well do when you get there. I'm going to be making some frantic notes here because next Friday at the Soul Medicine Festival in Telford, Shropshire, here in the UK. I'll be speaking about Ley Love Down. And whilst I may be a co-founder of the project, let me assure you, I know nothing about ley lines. So, Rachel, please tell it like tell it like I'm five, and I'll hand over to you so you can present. And by the way, ladies and gents, non-binaries, blue hairs, I'm kidding. That doesn't exist. We are recording today. So this is going to be used for socials, for teaching, etc., etc. So I'm going to be cutting in after I finish this statement. So if your name is up and you don't want your name is up to be up, do that now. If you don't want your picture to be up, take that away now. My picture's up. I don't care what they think. I don't care what they say. I'm going to do it anyway. That's probably a quote from a song. I'm not particularly sure which. As you can tell, I'm running on very little sleep. So you've got 10 seconds to get rid of your names. You've got 10 seconds to get rid of your pictures. God sees everybody anyway, as well as the Chinese security services. Don't worry about it. We're going to win anyway. Right, cool. Rachel, you're in the hot seat. You're in the big chair. Please do go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Beautiful. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I can see a lot of very familiar names. Some are new to me. So I'm going to do my best today to do a very basic introduction to how you can see ley lines and some of the other factors around how they show themselves to us. So that will require some screen sharing. So bear with me. All right. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm bringing up here. There is a way to make me the biggest sort of person or biggest picture in that you're looking at on the screen. So it requires going. If I had Alex here, she'd show it to you. But you can go up to the three dots on your little screen, and you can make me the speaker the biggest picture, something along those lines. So we'll start at the start. Oh, come on, there we go. All right. So just a basic overview. There are a lot of pictures that you'll find on the internet of where the ley lines are. And these are, some of them, can be proven through various means. Dowsing is one of them. There's a lot of geobiologists who go into these sorts of studies, and they actually go out and they go onto the field and they find the leys. This is just a very basic overview picture that I got off the internet. And as you can see, there's some significant places located on some of the ley lines. This is interesting. There's actually a crossing of dragon lines over Australia. I know more about Australia, obviously, because that's where I am. This is a map of the ley lines that's from an original individual. It's a cultural picture that Madeline Doherty shared with me. And this dot here, I believe, represents Uluru, which is one of the crossing, a position of crossing of ley lines, dragon lines, actually the two larger, two very large, or the largest of ley lines are called dragon lines. And there are two dragon lines that cross over at Uluru. Okay. And this is just more of a sort of a clearer picture of one of those ley lines that actually crosses. So Uluru is here. We have Wilpena Pound here. And if you look at the next slide, this is from Robert Jameson. Again, that's that grid 44 or 144. So we've got Uluru here, which is a big orange rock, which is quite spectacular. So that's considered by the original peoples, according to Robert Jameson's book, the Bali to Bairnsdale alignment. The Uluru is actually considered to be one of the ovaries of the world. A lot of these really powerful ley line crossings where the dragon lines cross are considered to be the Earth's chakra spaces. So just like human beings and the human body has a series of chakras, the Earth does as well. Okay, and so that crossing of ley lines in Australia is considered to be the sacral chakra. In some, it's interesting because you look it up and you'll find that some people say it's actually the navel chakra of the Earth. I believe it's to be the sacral chakra personally because Wilpena Pound looks like a womb. And there's a lot of visual aspects to what I'm going to be talking about today that it's just kind of obvious from the visuals that we get that the earth is speaking to us in many ways. And that's why I believe Australia to be the sacral chakra, or Uluru, and the Wilpena Pound area specifically to be part of that sacral chakra crossing of those two dragon lines. So there are many different sized ley lines as well. They can be very small. Some of the smaller ones called the Hartmann-Curry lines can actually have negative effects over long periods. And I will be showing some examples of the smaller ley lines that do have this negative effect on nature as well. You'll see that the trees that grow within the Hartmann-Curry lines, or what I believe to be, the Hartmann-Curry lines, are more tortured looking. So it's interesting the way that, yeah, there's so many factors that make it quite obvious where the ley lines are. I'm going to be talking about two gentlemen today, quite briefly, but they are giants in this field. One is Rory Duff. This is his book. I thoroughly recommend you read this. He's quite an extensive author, but this one in particular is really significant to what I'll be talking about today. I just want to read a little bit of what Rory talks about in his book. So that's all very, actually, I'll leave it up. Sorry, it's a bit fuzzy. So I'm just going to read a few of these quotes out because it will help you to understand what the rest of what I'll be talking about today actually means. So to start off with, the idea that sound creates light is already being discussed amongst some scientists. So we may be finding that some kind of interface between the two exists at specific ultra low frequencies. There's an understanding that vibrations create light, which in turn creates matter. This is a concept that Nikola Tesla supported, and that's very important. That sentence there is extremely important for what we're going to be discussing today. So there is an understanding that vibrations create light, which in turn creates matter. The straight alignments are definitely straight over short to medium distances. However, when looking at them over greater distances, it would be fairer to call them corridors. And this is what I find in nature. I've been photographing ley lines for about 10 years. And you can actually literally see, if you're standing in the cross section of a ley line, you will see this perfect circle in front of you. You can photograph it. It shows up on photos, as you'll be seeing. And it's obviously an interplay of light and sound. Now, original Australians call these ley lines, song lines. I've heard other original peoples call them song lines also. American Indians called them dragon lines and spirit lines. We also have them named dream lines. So there's many different names for them in many different cultures. Some of the lines run in pairs, and I've got instances of that as well in photographs. Most importantly, there is rarely a square kilometre that doesn't have one or more of these lines in. And if you look at Rory Duff's book, the guideline book that I'm quoting here, he actually has a table that tells you what size they are, what the resonance is. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I really can't recommend that book enough. So Earth energy lines are three-dimensional and are linear concentrations of energy within a field of energy. And as such, where these lines cross over each other, we find three-dimensional shapes of energy. They're dynamic and change over time into different forms. And also where these lines cross in significant places, you'll find these incredible sacred sites like Stonehenge and various others. And these energy lines also have a strong connection to the universal consciousness. So I'm just going to let some people in because I am host. I just need to let some people in. Okay, hopefully they can come back in now. All right, so this is another giant whose shoulders I'm standing on to teach some of this information. I do teach this information in a course as well as many of you know, because you have all been through the course. So this is an absolutely brilliant book. There's so much information here. I can't cover it all in one quick talk, and I'm going to try and keep this to an hour today, so wish me luck. There's a lot of information to cover. Alfred Watkins, just as Rory Duff mentioned, some of these lines are straight, but Alfred Watkins, even though he calls his book The Old Straight Track, there are serpentine lines, and he does discuss them in the book. So some of these lines are on straight alignments, and you'll find all these marked places like marked stones and marked trees and tumps and mounds and castles and churches now on those straight alignments. They do move a little. They do snake through the landscape as well. So they're not exact straight lines. Okay, can I just remind everybody to please mute themselves as well? Okay.
Oh,
Now, in in Alfred Watkins' book, he doesn't speak of this. It's interesting. This is not in the actual book, but I found this after I'd started reading the book, and this is absolutely so important to what we're going to be learning about today. So on a sunny afternoon in 1921, and just so you know, Alfred Watkins' book was actually, can you please mute yourselves, everybody? So because there's just a little bit of noise coming in. So if you could please just make sure that you're muted, that would help. So Alfred Watkins' book, The Old Straight Track, was published in 1925. He was also an early photographer. It's a brilliant book. It's well worth reading. So I'll just read this particular statement. On a sunny afternoon in 1921, while he was out riding his horse along the rolling hills surrounding the hamlet of Blackwoodine, Watkins had an astonishing revelation while looking out over the landscape, which he later described as being like a flood of ancestral memory. It suddenly dawned on him that a network of lines stood out like glowing wires all over the surface of the county. He noted that these grid-like markings ran in perfectly straight paths, crisscrossing at certain locations he called terminal points. I'll be calling them portals in this masterclass, which usually coincided with sites such as beacons, mounds, holy wells, which are natural springs considered sacred, churches, and ruins. What he saw on that day inspired him to write his ideas down and create a theory, which has captured the imagination of a nation and later became the subject of much debate. What's interesting that, I mean, the ley lines have been known about by Aboriginal peoples across the world for millennia. What we have with Alfred Watkins is someone who put that into a context that the Western world could then look upon. I can assure you Aboriginal peoples all over the world know how to find them. They know how to look at them. They know that they're visible. So ley lines are actually part of the Earth's magnetic field. So they're closely tied to the Earth's magnetic field, which is significant if we look at what I'm about to describe here. So I've been talking about ley lines being visible, I mean, for 10 years with friends and people that I talk to. I've only really gone public about it since December of 2022. Then I started teaching it in 2023 in July. I taught a few people before in December, and then I started doing it publicly. I knew I could see them. I knew I could photograph them. I just didn't have any scientific proof yet that you could see them. Well, this study proves that you can see them. So this was written in June of 2011, but published on the 21st of June 2011, which I think is very significant. It happens to be the winter solstice or the summer solstice, depending on what part of the world you're in. So this study proves that the human cryptochrome has light-dependent magnetosensitivity. So I'll read a little of this as well. Sorry, this part of the masterclass is only going to be brief, the reading part. So humans are not believed to have a magnetic sense, even though many animals use the Earth's magnetic field for orientation and navigation. One model of magnetosensing in animals proposes that magnetic fields are perceived by light-sensitive chemical reactions involving the flavor protein cryptochrome, or CRY. Here we show using a transgenic approach that human CRY2, which is heavily expressed in the retina, can function as a magnetocenter in the magnetoreception system of Drosophila, which is a fruit fly, and that it does so in a light-dependent manner. The results show that human CRY2 has the molecular capacity or capability to function as a light-sensitive magnetosensor and reopen an area of sensory biology that is ready for further exploration in humans. I'll read on. So humans are widely assumed to not have a magnetic sense. For example, the extensive behavioural studies by Robin Baker. Now, I looked up Robin Baker and it's absolutely fascinating. This person obviously recognises that we have this ability to see ley lines. And I just wanted to quote a couple of things from Robin before I go on with this particular piece of the presentation. Robin describes in one of his studies that magnetoreception is just one element in an integrated navigational armory that involves all the available sensors and uses a wide range of environmental information. So it sounds to me like Robin knows exactly what he's talking about. He goes on in one of the other studies to say the next statement, there is a stark contrast between positive results of his studies, people replicating his studies, and it is replicable, what he has proven, and negative interpretations, and this remains an unexplained feature of the literature on human magnetoreception. And I read some of the studies that try to refute what Robin Baker has provided in his scientific studies. And the studies that are trying to refute it, it's like academic trolling. It's the only way I can describe it. Some of the studies are just one paragraph. There doesn't seem to be any evidence backing them up. They just say doesn't exist. People can't see ley lines. They can't see. They don't have magnetoreceptors, which is very interesting. Very interesting. So I think, you know, clearly he's probably quite, well, I don't know. He may be well versed in why the powers that be don't want us to know about these things and that they don't want us to be aware of how to find ley lines. I just thought that was fascinating. So there is consistent evidence of influence of geomagnetic fields on the light sensitivity of the human visual system. Okay, and I've shared the ability to see ley lines with multiple course members now, probably over 200 now, and the vast majority do pick it up. They do pick it up. So I do seem to find that there is a correlation between those who have an eye coloration called central heterochromia and being able to pick up on the ley lines as well. There seems to be a correlation or an interdependence perhaps of that iris coloration and the ability to pick up on magnetic fields, which could mean that there's more of these CRY2 magnetoreceptors in people with central heterochromia. And that's something that, you know, obviously someone who's a scientist would have to study. Right. It's been proposed recently that light-sensitive magnetic responses are not only used for directional information, but may also aid visual spatial perception in mammals by providing a spherical coordinate system for integrating spatial positions, which I also thought was fascinating because when you look at the Leys that I'm about to show, you'll see that there's a spherical presentation. Human CRY2 has the molecular capability to function as a light-sensitive magnetosensor, and this finding may lead to a renewed interest in human magnetoreception. Now, one of the studies that was trying to, I'm just getting some background noise, guys, so could you just make sure that you're all muted? You can find the little mute button at the bottom left. Thank you very much. Okay, so just if you could all please check and see if you're all muted. All right, thanks, guys. Okay, so it's the fact that we've got, you know, these studies are out there. They are out there. There's multiple studies now proving that we have these magnetoreceptors. There certainly seems to be some desire to make sure that we don't share this information, which I find also fascinating. And I have many theories on that. Okay, so we're going to go into the woo-woo part of this presentation now. So I'm going to keep this as short as possible, but this is actually very, very important. So not only are the ley lines visible, we have the ability with these magnetoreceptors that are heavily expressed in the retina to see these magnetic lines. There are also other elements that make them very obvious. Now, in the UK, where you have, you know, the Roman occupation used those ley lines in such a powerful way, they sadly did rituals in the crossing of many of the powerful ley lines. And then what would happen is when the Catholic Church came in, they basically set up shop. They put their churches, and a Freemason would be required to cite the church on the ley specifically. Every single church that was cited in those times, there was a Freemason would go along with a citing rod to cite it on a ley line. So we're talking about visual terms. So often these churches would actually use the ritual stones that the Romans used to use for sacrifices as part of the foundation stone for the churches. And something that the church also used to do was present pareidolia images, and I'm going to describe what pareidolia is before I go deeper into it, but they would actually use these pareidolia images in the church to bring the pagans in, and it's for a very powerful reason. So according to psychology, these pareidolia images of faces in nature, it's called pareidolia, and it's, according to Wikipedia, the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual, so that one sees an object, pattern, or meaning where there is none. Common examples are perceived images of animals, faces, or objects in cloud formations, seeing faces in inanimate objects, or lunar pareidolia like the man in the moon or the moon rabbit. Now, what's so insulting about this is that we have Indigenous cultures or original cultures across the world who have for millennia found significance in these so-called pareidolik images of nebulous stimulus. And unfortunately, this is what psychology has been designed to do. And apologies to anybody who works as a psychologist in this group or who's watching. I'm not attacking you specifically. I'm attacking the way that psychology has manipulated and basically programmed us to believe that if we see these sorts of things, it's just you know, a trick of the mind. It's not anything significant, when in actual fact it's extremely significant. And original cultures know this. Okay, so this is a depiction of the Green Man, which is one of the spirits of the British countryside that Alfred Watkins actually discusses in his book. So Genio, what do they call it? Terra Britannica, spirit of the British countryside. So again, when the Catholic Church came into the UK and wanted to build all their churches, they couldn't get the pagans to come into the church unless they depicted the spirit of the British countryside that the pagans had been revering and had been worshipping for many, many, many years. There are several depictions that I'm going to share today of the Green Man. These are ones that are actually in churches. So this is what is described the quintessential Green Man in one of the BBC documentaries that I share in my course. And this one, I think you see many, many depictions of the Green Man in churches with the foliage coming out of the mouth. Now, how do you show symbolically that the spirit of the British countryside or the spirit of nature wants to communicate with us in a visual? You would show that the leaves or the branches come out of the mouth. They often say they don't understand why the depictions of the Green Man have these foliage things coming out of the mouth. It's a way of symbolizing and representing communication from the spirit of nature to us. This is a supposedly pareidolik image. I'm assuming it's in the Americas somewhere. I'm not sure where the actual location is. This is spectacular. This is a revered site. It's a sacred site for the people in this area. I wish I knew where the location was. Unfortunately, it was shared with me on my Telegram chat, and I just don't know where it came from. But you can see why it's so special to these people. This is a beautiful depiction of what you might describe as the spirit of nature. Now, I think this one's really significant, and I wanted to share this because you see similar things like this in many different countries. And apparently Mount Rushmore, where an artist actually etched out the faces of many presidents in America. Supposedly, originally, there was actually a depiction, a natural depiction already there called the grandfathers, and they were defaced by that artist going in and putting up the president's faces. And I have read that the artist was actually horrified by the closer end of his life and actually said he wished he hadn't done it. So that's an example of someone defacing the spirit of nature to put on it a depiction of presidents, to make it more about particular people having power instead of nature having the power. And I think that's very significant for what we're going to be learning. This is a beautiful photograph. I'm going to be sharing quite a few photographs from course members, previous course members that I've taught the ley line information to. This one was from Claire, and thank you, Claire. This is quite a beautiful depiction. This is a cloud formation, which to me is very obviously like two Indigenous faces, Australian Aboriginal people's faces. We have the female here with her hair in a bun, little tiny nose profile, and a profile of a gentleman also. What a spectacular photograph. I'm actually very envious. So Claire, you did well with that one. So this is just another example. These supposedly nebulous stimuli, they can come up in nature in many different ways. They can be in the clouds, they can be in rock formations, and they can be in plants and trees. This is Castle Hill, and many thanks to Mina for sharing this photograph. Castle Hill is absolutely resplendent with ley lines. It's a very, very powerful place in New Zealand. And there's another depiction which Sarah shared of what looks to me like the Sphinx's face. It's, you know, it couldn't be more obvious. Beautiful, beautiful location. This is a photograph that I've taken myself. this is on Shelley Beach in Middleton in South Australia, which is on the south coast of South Australia. Now, I cannot for the life of me find where I took this photograph. I took this years ago and I've never been able to find it again. So I've done my best to draw what I can see in this image, and it's an Indigenous gentleman's and an elder's face. This particular beach is absolutely covered in quartz. And so where you get these quartz seams, you'll often get ley lines. They seem to be interdependent. It's not always definitely you'll see a ley line there, but if you see quartz seams in a particular location, you're more likely to find ley lines in that area. This is a beautiful shot, and I believe there was a lay in the location as well, shared by Jessie. And I've just gone a close up so you can see, you know, this is the bark of a tree presenting a facial image. So you've got the two eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the chin. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is because quite often you will see something like this, a face in nature, and then you'll find a ley line right next to it. Now, I took this photograph many years ago. I had no idea at the time that I'd actually photographed a portal and that the face in this picture is actually looking directly into that portal. Now, this particular photograph has great significance to me because I was actually utilised in well, I was forced to witness a horrific ritual, which I believe occurred in Belair National Park in Adelaide. And this is actually Belair as well. So this is evidence, physical, photographic evidence that there is a very powerful ley line running through the Belair National Park, at least one that I've actually photographed. So as I go through here, I will be jumping backwards and forwards between the images to see what I've marked out as a ley or a portal and the original photograph. So I'll go backwards and forwards a few times as I show you what I'm showing. Now, the father of Curlian photography, a man called Walter Kilner, that if you allow your visual eyesight to go into what's called relaxed vision, you will pick up different aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum that focused vision will not pick up. That is actually very important when you're looking for a ley line. And what is actually really interesting, and you'll be seeing this as I go on further, when you get a photograph that has a ley or a portal in it and you see it in thumbnail size, the ley or the portal will be more obvious in thumbnail size with the photograph's actually quite small. I didn't realize that. I just thought I'd taken a photograph of this amazing tree that had this profile of an old man's face on it. Eye, nose, got the cheek with a bit of a wart on it, chin coming down here, downturned mouth, couldn't be more obvious. He's staring directly into a ley. So that's not an accident. This tree is pointing out this ley line. And again, it's not just me who believes in this. There's a whole chapter in Alfred Watkins' book about marked trees. Okay, so he doesn't go so much into the pareidolia aspect of the marked trees, but he points out that these trees are specifically on these ley lines. And one of the most obvious things that you'll see as you wander around in the bush looking for a ley line is when you do find one, you'll see that the plants and the trees do their absolute best not to grow in the ley line. They avoid it as best they can. And you get all these really misshapen bows of limbs and the actual trunk of the tree can be all misshapen trying to avoid the ley line. For some reason, they don't like to grow within them. Okay. So again, if you allow your eyes to go into relaxed vision, so relaxed vision is where you just let your eyes go kind of lazy. You're not staring directly at the focus, the minutiae of the photograph. You're actually allowing your eyes to just get a bit lazy, a bit tired, and just wander. If you're myopic, you'll probably find this a lot easier. Just take your glasses off, and you'll probably see that the circles. So again, in thumbnail form, you'll see it more clearly. So I don't know if you guys can see that as clearly as I can, but that circle there could not be more obvious. And it's very, very clear in the grass. And I just want to clarify, apart from that photograph that I drew the man's face at Middleton on the rock, I've not photographed, I've not used Photoshop or anything on any of these images, nor have the people who've shared the images in my course. And that's another reason why I've shared so many images from other people in the course today, because it's proven they've shared these images in the course. There's many witnesses to the fact that they shared them. They've not mucked around with them. These are genuine images. This is a perfect example, and thank you very much to Leanne for sharing this one, of a tree avoiding a ley line to the point where it's very misshapen. It's a very oddly shaped tree. And what's actually quite freaky is there's actually a face up here. So I'll just show you where the ley line is to start off with. Now, when I do look for lays in course members' photographs, or if I'm out looking at ley lines myself, I always try to make sure that I can see the lay in more than one position to validate that there is actually a ley line there. This is an unusual photograph because where the ley line originates, it's smaller than perspective would allow it to be this large as it gets closer to the viewer. So I believe there must be another ley line that crosses over here at some point that's magnifying the lay here. So I'll just go backwards and forwards a little bit. Don't worry if you can't see it very clearly here. Some of these images aren't as clear as the ones I'll be showing later, which are so obvious you can't miss it. Relaxed vision or not, you can see them. Okay, so this is the face. Now, I would say this tree's tried to avoid this ley line for some time. Obviously, there's been some fire damage, but it's just very interesting that there's a ley running through here, and you can see a face in the tree. And there's another face down below as well. Thank you to Sue for this picture. So this is another depiction, and this one is more of the foliage in the plant, and you can actually see what looks to be a horse's face here. We've got 2 eyes, ears, nostrils, and the mouth, and the cheek of the horse. There's another face up here, but it's not as obvious. Right. So we're coming out of the woo-woo part. So for those who aren't into this sort of stuff. Now, I wanted to show, very much thank Prana for the next image that I'm about to share, but that needs a little bit of background. So she shared that a neighbour of hers told her about a park that she visits, and that it used to be the Nazi headquarters for the Atlantic Wall, which is a coastal defence system spanning from Norway to Spain. And all of the houses in the neighbourhood had been evacuated to house thousands of Nazi soldiers and generals in that area in Belgium. And apparently there are mansions and underground tunnels in the nearby location. Now, this photograph's extremely significant. This is the part that's just been described. There is a face down here that is, it's almost like someone's drawn it in. It's so obvious. And again, I'm just going to show there's a lay running through. That's a perspective lay. It's not having another one cross over. I don't think that's just in perspective. But down here, if I go closer in, I don't know if you guys can see that. I hope you can. There are 2 eyes, a rather large nose, and a mouth here. You can see the brow. So this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about. You will find there is a ley line in that location, and then you'll get some sort of image, which is, you know, a face or some sort of depiction. Now, the reason this happens, I believe, is because the spirit of nature is trying to communicate with humans. And the spirit of nature has communicated with humans for millennia. Original cultures know this. Western cultures make it all a pathology, and they try and lock people up for talking about these sorts of things. Interestingly, I don't know if anybody else can see this, but there's a rather terrifying image in the background, a face as well, but I won't focus on that too much. So now we're going to focus more on what the actual ley lines look like, as opposed to picking up on those other stimuli that will point them out. This is a Roman road. So these are ancient. The Romans used the ley lines to put their roads in for a very simple reason. The ley lines, as I said before, run through the landscape. Trees and plants try to avoid them. If you're going through an area, particularly the UK is known for being so wooded. In one of the BBC documentaries I've watched, they have said, you know, in certain areas, you know, a squirrel didn't even have to touch the ground to get from one part of the country to the other, because it's just trees everywhere. So if you're going to build a road, do you go through all the trees, or do you find the path of least resistance where the trees and plants do not grow, and where animals have been using that track for millennia? Of course, you're going to go on the path of least resistance. So that's what ley lines do. They create paths through nature that try to avoid them. Now, this is such a beautiful picture. I get so excited about this one because you can actually see the light refraction actually on the road as well. It's easy enough to see the light refraction across natural stuff like plants and trees and grasses and things. It's less easier to see them on roads in urban areas. So I'll mark, and thank you, Elaine, for this one. Now, this is another feature. So normally when you would stand in a smaller ley line, it's a perfect circle, and you can see it as a perfect circle. As the ley lines get bigger and more powerful, they get a squashed appearance. You get a squashed sort of ellipse. So this one shows itself in multiple places. And again, I don't validate that it's a ley line unless I can see the circles in more than one location. And Aline was kind enough to get the image from the other direction as well. So okay. So again, you can see that line specifically is very clear. Okay. It gets clearer as the presentation goes on as well. And this one as well, it's the same road from the different angle from the other side. And those reverberations of that ley line go all the way along. And that's just a comparison. This is Braemar College, and I thought it was worth showing this because this is in an area where there's magnetic anomalies. And I've done a talk on that, and I'll show you where you can find that later on in the presentation. But there's a very clear ley line, and it's quite a large one running along the street there. And this is just an image from you can Google this, look up Braemar College, you'll find it. This was shared by Kylie. Beautiful, beautiful ley, shown in multiple different positions. You can't miss that one. I mean, that line is so clear. And again, this is a form of light refraction. Another one, so clear. And again, I know these pictures are quite small, but you can often see them much more clearly when they are small. This is one of my favorites. So this is a dog running along a ley line, and we get to see it from both different angles. It could not be clearer that there is a circle here. And again, you just don't get these perfect circles in nature normally, but you do when it comes to ley lines and the way that the light refracts. So you can see the circle in multiple positions. And as the dog runs in the opposite direction, you can see from the other angle. And again, you can see the ley quite obvious. And I've done a comparison because I think it's important to see the size doesn't change from each direction. So these two circles are virtually the same size. And honestly, that is just, one of the most beautiful representations that I've found. This really is one of the best as well. So animals will show us ley lines. So it's not just the spirit of nature that wants us to see them. Animals will show them as well. And I've got multiple examples of animals doing so. This was shared by Jim. Thank you very much, Jim, because this is one of my absolute favorites. Now, I haven't marked it as perfectly as I should have. The line is actually here, and I've marked it outside the line, unfortunately, in the comparison, but you get a bit of an idea. So if you look at this picture with your eyes going out of focus, just relaxed vision, you're not looking at anything specific, you're just letting your eyes relax as you look at the picture, you cannot miss this ley line. It is so clear. So I'll just jump backwards and forwards a little bit. Again, I've gone outside the lines here. That the line is actually here, which sucks, but I'll just show the comparison as well. All right, so, I mean, look at that. It's so clear. Now, what I haven't shared here, because I feel Jim said I could share it, but it's very personal. Along with this incredible image that this dingo pointed out, he's standing right in the middle of the ley line for Jim to see. I believe it was on the same evening that Jim took a photograph of a log in a fire that also was exactly the shape of a dingo's head. Now, this is why original peoples have amazing folklore around nature communicating with us because of experiences like that. Okay, so now I wanted to show quite a few examples of roads as well, because again, if you've got areas across the world that people want to put a road in, they're going to go for the path of least resistance that nature's already created a path through. In Australia, the ley lines are used by the kangaroos, dingoes, echidnas. They're very commonly used by those animals. It's interesting, though, I don't see birds using them. I'm not sure why that is. I don't tend to see birds in leys, but I see the mammals using them and the monotremes. This one's beautiful again. Absolutely spectacular. And there's actually another line here that's very, very clear. You can see it on the road there on the path. So thank you, Catherine. And there's a comparison so you can see. It's just stunning. This one's unusual in the shape, and this is why I wanted to share it, because it's an unusual shape. And again, Rory Duff describes in a chart in his book, his guideline book on ley lines, all the different size ley lines that you can find. This is quite a large one. This was shared by Dale Holmes. And again, I'm going to leave it in that thumbnail size. I know it's very small, but the lay here is so clear. Now, I had been telling Dale, this is Dale Holmes. He's a YouTuber and he's quite active and quite well known. I've been telling Dale for years because he would go and do these walk and talks in Bendigo in Australia and Victoria along these beautiful areas, this particular place that he would walk in quite often. And there's seams of quartz in this area. And I kept saying, Dale, there's a ley line behind you. And he was like, oh, what are you talking about? But he was very nice about it. He's always very nice about it. He didn't know what I was talking about until one day he went out and he could see them. He'd done my course. I taught him some things. He could see them. It's quite a profound moment when you go out and you can actually find a ley line yourself. So I'll mark it. So I'll just go backwards and forwards a bit so you can see what he's shown here. There were multiple lays in this particular location, but that just gives you a bit of an idea. And it couldn't be more obvious. I mean, you can see that circle. It's a refraction of light. It's almost as if someone has taken a ball, a spherical ball of energy and placed it in there. That's what it looks like to me, like there's a ball of energy. All right. There are 2 lays in this particular position. And now I think these might be what Rory Duff describes as one of the type 3 lines because they tend to run in pairs. You'll get a larger line and you'll get a shadow line next to it, a smaller line next to it. So not as obvious as the original picture that I shared from Dale, but still pretty obvious. And again, you know, these lines show themselves very clearly in areas where there's lots of quartz. This is a beautiful, beautiful shot. So this is from Anita. Again, if you let your eyes go to focus, you can see the circle in this spot so clearly. Now, this is a really good example because it looks to me like this is obviously near the beach. It's probably on the way to the ocean. This individual is actually a surfer. But what's really amazing is it looks like there's no trees here, but there's trees here, but there's a break in them. So there'd be no reason for that break to be there unless there was something that was channeling energy through that the plants couldn't quite grow within. And so it becomes a path. So that's why it's such a great example. You would think that the path of least resistance would be to walk over the sand dune, but this natural path already exists. And again, trees and plants will try to avoid growing within them, but they often will grow in them because they have no other choice. And then you'll get these very demented looking, tortured looking trees. And that's a sign, that's a marked tree. If you see a tree that's growing in a very odd shape that seems to almost have a circular sort of bow on it, or that the tree itself is sort of shaped around something like I showed earlier, that's a really good sign. Look for a ley in that area. Take photographs. Quite often when you're in the space, there's too much stimulation, there's too much stuff going on around you. You might not necessarily be able to see it as well as when you take that photograph home and look at it in small form, in thumbnail form on your screen. And this one's from Dita. And I put this one in as well because it's so clear and very similar to Anita's. This is a fantastic example of what I assume this was a borer ring. The Australian original people have ceremonial sites called borer rings where multiple lays feed into one big portal. This particular site has history behind it, but it's for the Sikh community who actually migrated to Australia and set up their own sacred site in this area. And they actually did their funerary rites in this particular spot. But if you have a look, these lays, there's so many of them. And I see this formation with lays all together going into a portal space around the borer rings in Australia. And that's the actual, the portal that it feeds into. So that's a comparison for you to see. And again, you need to let your eyes go out of focus to see it. But this one's the most clear. I mean, you can't miss that one. It's so painfully obvious. Okay. That's a comparison showing the portal space. All right. So now these photographs are quite amazing. So thank you to Anka for sharing this. So she shared a series of photographs of an area called the Witch's Grove. Now, grove is a really interesting word because it's about light. Grove actually means light. So when you've got a grove of trees and ley lines within them, quite often you'll get this word grove that's being used alongside it in historical documentation. So as Anka said, the trees in this particular Witch's Grove are a special sort of beech, but when you try to breed them out of the seed, they don't grow in the same weird tortured formation as they do in this particular location, which tells you that the energy there must be different for the trees to grow in that way. So this is the Witch's Grove. This is one of the trees, and obviously that's not a normal growth pattern for a tree. It's quite all over the place. There's a limb that's sort of almost turning a circle here. And there's a very beautiful ley. Now, this is a really good example because the ley line can be seen over the leaves, but also in multiple other spots where the leaves can't be seen. So if you can see that very clear circle in that space. And again, normally I wouldn't say, yes, it's definitely a ley line because I can't see multiple, but I could see it in multiple photographs. So the second photograph has the ley in the same position. And I do a comparison at the end so you can see exactly where they all are. And again, from a different angle, same position. And it's very clear, very clear. And again, you know, there's no bells and whistles, unfortunately, with this sort of thing. You have to keep your eyes out and learn the techniques to find them. But that's your comparison. So in each of these photographs, this is closer up, so the ley is larger, but in these two, it's the same size. All right. It's slightly different angle. So if I show you, this is from a different angle. So these are two different photographs. They look like they're the same, but they're actually two different photographs. Okay. Another example of being able to see the ley in multiple positions and at different times. So this is from Sue. Now, this one's really large. This is spectacular. This could be a portal, a crossing of leys. Where you get crossings of multiple leys, you'll get a larger space that's like a great big sphere of energy. And that's what I call portals. The dowsers tend to call them vortexes. So Rory Duff describes them as a vortex. This is the same property, same position. Pay attention to this tree here. So that's the same tree. That's the portal from this angle. So I'll go backwards and forwards so you can see it again. You can see this beautiful line here, where the light is refracting. And there it is again, but from closer up, different time of the day. So, and again, you know, these have been shared with me, with course members. This is not Photoshop. All right, so this is probably, I think this is probably one of my absolute favorite course shares. So this is from Mark. It seems to me that if you want to find a ley line, the best, most optimal times to actually see them is either at dawn or dusk. The light refraction seems to be more obvious at those times. So I've marked the one here and you can see the line. It's just so clear. It's beautiful. It's a form of light refraction. She hasn't gone out there and tried with perspective to push something on there to make it look like a ley line. That's just the way the light refracts. So again, it's an interplay of sound and light, and this is why I believe the original Australians called them song lines, because it's sound and light frequency. And we can pick it up because of the magnetoreceptors in the CRY2 cryptochromes. So this is how this all happened for me. I had been photographing this particular location over many years. The first photograph at the bottom here, I'm going to keep it in the thumbnail form at the moment so that you can see it more clearly. I took this, these are all the original photographs, and these are the photographs where I've marked the ley. Or sorry, it's a portal in this particular instance, because you can see where the ley feeds in from, or leys feed in from multiple areas, because I've gone back and taken this photographs in this area over and over and over again. This photograph down the bottom was taken in 2015, 2016 in April. This is a little deciduous tree, which is a wonderful little mark tree for this study. This one was taken in 2022, December, and this one was taken in August of 2023. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it as clearly as I can, but you can see the sphere in each of these shots taken over many years. This one down the bottom was taken with a handheld camera. These two were taken with a phone camera. So it's different devices, different times of the year, different times of the day. And the portal is quite obvious, in my opinion. You can see it. It's clear. It's a light refraction. So this is what you're looking for. You're looking for a circle in nature where a circle should not appear. What's really interesting about where the leys cross over in these larger portal spaces, again, nothing likes to grow in the portal spaces particularly. You can get trees or grasses or shrubs that grow within the ley lines that look really mangled and uncomfortable. When it comes to the way they cross or the places where they cross over, you won't get any vegetation at all. A good example is Uluru. Again, I mentioned Uluru, this large sacred site. It's a large rock in the middle of Australia where two dragon lines cross. The two largest of the ley lines cross over in this one point. It's considered you shouldn't get up on the rock, and you're not allowed to anymore. It's actually illegal to go up on the rock. I sat there and deliberated about whether or not to actually walk up on Uluru for a good half an hour to an hour before I actually went up there, because I was very conflicted. But I went up. This is in 2020, and it was absolute silence at the top on the rock. There were about 20 other people with me. No one said a word. I couldn't hear a bird sing. There was no wind. It was one of the eeriest but most spectacular experiences of my life, and I'm so glad I did it. I wouldn't do it now because I have a better understanding of how sacred that site is, but it's given me a better understanding of what ley lines are. So for some reason, where these energy lines cross, plants don't want to be in there, birds don't want to be in there, animals will go in there. This is a really good example as well, and I'll just go a bit closer in. There's a little ground cover here called mun trees. It's actually got a really lovely little berry that tastes like apple and cinnamon. It's extremely nutritious. That's the only plant that would grow in this area. It's been there for years. It hasn't grown much. It's a very slow growing plant, but nothing else really wants to grow in that space. I do really concentrate on this particular area. This is in the Black Swamp in Currency Creek in South Australia, also close to the South Coast. I recommend people go and have a look and feel the energy there. It's really quite spectacular. Lots and lots of paradolic stuff going in there as well, or spirit of nature. This is a Bora ring. I don't want to concentrate too much on the Bora rings because I don't want to be, these are sacred sites, so I don't want to concentrate on them too much. But I just want to show, just like Anora's photograph that I shared before, where you see several layers coming in. They're quite, this is the marking, the rocks are there to mark out the portal space created by all the layers crossing over and magnifying the energy in that spot. And this is where they would do, sacred rites. And this one is quite clear, and I wanted to show this as well. This is also a Bora ring. This is also called the Bora ring and the cemetery. So I believe there must be a cemetery in this location. Whether or not it's original people's cemetery, I don't know. I just found this image on Google Images. But you can't miss that. It's so obvious. And there are quite a few lays feeding into that one as well. I wanted to share this because this is the Washington Monument. Now, all these paths going in don't really make a lot of sense. Why are they all crisscrossing all over that place? I think that actually they are marking out the ley lines. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know a lot about the site. What you see here is the marking of the portal. This big circle, this is what you see in all these very important places. They don't talk about it, but the portal's been marked out. And you'll see these, it's very difficult to create a circle in masonry. It takes a lot more effort to do that. There's a reason for that. This is built by Freemasons for Freemasons. We're not supposed to know about what's going on here, why it's so significant. And what you'll find with these obelisks in these really significant places is that they are made of piezoelectric rock, or they'll have piezoelectric qualities, like they'll have a copper cap or something along those lines. It's harnessing energy, literally harnessing energy. This is the Vatican. I have quite a few friends who were ritually abused in the sub-levels of the Vatican. Max Lowen's best known for that, but I know others as well. Again, we have a portal marked out, and we have ley lines marked, and we have an obelisk of piezoelectric rock with a copper top to harness the energy. And this is why Ben and I are doing this ley line project. We want people to utilize this powerful energy that we all have as human beings, go into these sacred spaces. You can go into a ley line in your local park and have the same effect as you would have if you go out to a sacred spot, like the crossing of the dragon lines. And this is Stonehenge, which is another crossing of dragon lines. But you can do it in your local area and have just as much effect. You go in, you bring your positive intent for the freedom of humanity, the health of the earth, health of all humans. for the greatest good of all. You go in with that intention and you sing, or you take in 432 hertz tuning forks, or you take in a musical instrument that's tuned to a high frequency like 432 hertz, 528 hertz, something along those lines, and you make beautiful sound with the intent behind it. You feel love for the earth, love for humanity. This is what's actually going to undo the negative frequencies that have been placed into these sacred sites for millennia. This is the reason why we're not told the true history of the earth and the true history of these sacred sites. This is why we have psychology telling us that pareidolia is a nebulous stimulus and not actually nature trying to speak to us. Because we plebeians, the common man, are not supposed to know this information. It is extremely important that we get this out there as much as possible. Again, Stonehenge, piezoelectric rock. There's a massive moat around it that points out the portal space. These are mark stones. Again, the mark stones, I've taken this image and done other things with it, which I show in the course, where you can see where the Leys are all crossing over in this particular location because they've got the stones to mark them out. This is the Oracle of Delphi. So again, we've got a circular plinth. They don't do this in masonry unless there's a reason. It's hard work. It's so much easier to make a square or a rectangle than make a circle because they're pointing out the portal space. And there's actually a pareidolia image here that I go into more detail in my course. It's spectacular. This is an image taken off the internet. There's a couple of people here, so it's not photoshopped. It's not drawn. It's a real image. This is Avebury Stone Circle. Again, you've got the big moat pointing out the enormous portal. And this is one of the rock formations at Avebury. And there is a beautiful ley line here. Just get a bit closer. You can see it. It's another one of these perfect circles. You can see it so clearly in the grass there. I hope you guys can see that. I hope the quality of the image is good enough for you to be able to see it. So I'll just go backwards and forwards and show where it is. Now, I'm fairly certain that this group of trees, this grove of marked trees, is the same as the one on Alfred Watkins' book. I don't know that for certain. It just looks almost entirely alike. And I couldn't find any information about the image shared on the book. We're just coming to the completion of the presentation. So I just wanted to share this. This was Taylor Swift's concert in Australia. This is at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. This is what Alfred Watkins talks about in his book. It's a marked tree. The bow is avoiding a ley line. I've marked the ley line. The ley line itself goes along the stage. She's walking the ley as she sings. Now, unfortunately, in this instance, because this isn't a situation where people are worshipping an individual, and that's what these crowds are doing, this is a negative use of a ley line. This is not a positive use of a ley line. And if you look at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, this particular arena where she's singing, it looks like an eye, to the point where they've even put trees and markings to outline the outer aspect of the eye. If you look at it from that perspective, you can see an eye there. She also played at the Accor Stadium. Again, the ley line looking down the stage, the marked tree, and this is what Accor Stadium looks like, another circular stadium. Interestingly, in the landscape, you've got Ibis Street. We've got nods to ancient Egypt and like a rising sun motif down here, which is another nod to Egypt, which you find in a lot of these places where they're utilizing these crossing of ley lines for nefarious purposes. You'll see a lot of Egyptian imagery or names or those sorts of things to point out that this is an ancient culture. This is an ancient ritualistic satanic culture that uses the ley lines for the wrong reasons, to do the wrong things. I assure you that these stadiums all around the earth, especially the ones that look like an eye, are on the crossings of very powerful ley lines. They are marking out a portal space. Just like the Oracle of Delphi, just like Stonehenge, they're marking them out. It's very likely that this would have been an old ritual site for original Australians. It's probably a very powerful bull ring, but of course the history is being erased. So that's the project. That's why we're doing this. That's why we wanted to share this information today. I want this to be public. I want people to understand how easy it is to go out and find a ley line and share the love, the positive energy, the intent. When you paint a picture, you take a thought, a visual, And then you put your intent behind it. You get out your paintings, you get out your canvas, you get the paint, you get everything ready, you get your brushes, and then you manifest it in the third dimension physically. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're taking this idea, we're putting the intent behind it, and we're physically going to push this beautiful, loving energy into the ley lines, take them back from these dark forces. I do some other, I've done some other publicly available discussions on how to see ley lines. I've done one with Dale Holmes, and I've done another one with Julia Starr. So if you want to have access to those, they're on my Rumble and BitChute channels as well. All right, so stop sharing that now. And we're back. All right, so Ben, are you still here or have you disappeared? Oh, yes, you are. You are here. Okay.
I am still here, buddy. I'm keeping the sound off, so the buzzsaw noises from next door aren't coming in. That was absolutely wonderful. And I have my sales and marketing brain on all the way through, making notes of all the things you said, which are worthy of memes, which are going to be handed down through the ages, which is pretty much all of it. And I was kind of watching, I was watching with one eye on the fact that I'm just going to steal your presentation and give it again at the Revolution, the Freedom Friday Voices of the Revolution talk tent at the Soul Revolution Festival. That was absolutely marvelous.
Can you
Absolutely.
see them now?
So do you know what? It's difficult because I'm trying to work out whether I want to see them so much that my mind's eye is informing my vision, or whether I'm witnessing a genuine change in my ability to do something. So because when I kind of got very close when I was looking at one of the pictures and I thought, right, the circle's going to go there, and the circle was kind of maybe 2 millimeters to the left. I thought,
Yeah,
damn.
okay. Yeah.
But then once the circle was taken away, it became obvious what I was looking at. But again, was my mind's own forming that? I'm not particularly sure. So I
Yeah.
think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We shall
Yeah.
see. But are there any questions? Do you guys want to ask anything of Rachel while you've got her in this context? There must be some questions. If not, great. We can go on about our day knowing exactly what we're to be doing here.
Can I ask something?
Whoever you are,
Absolutely.
yes, you can.
Yeah, it's Grant here.
Hello, Grant.
Oh,
Yeah, mate. I'm just to let people know, I'm in Central Australia at the moment. I'm in a place called Alice Springs. And as you come into Alice Springs, there's it's a place called the Gap. So I've recently been realizing there's really some sort of magical energy there. But I get the feeling there's a ley line, but it's actually underneath the river, because there's the river, the road, and the railway line that comes in. And I'll take some photos. I've just been really busy lately, but there's actually a face in the rock on the right hand side. There's a little cave which looks like an eye, and it's actually what it's called, caterpillar country. So a lot of the ranges, they all sort of form and they look like a caterpillar. But this face actually looks like a whale, and actually so it's going down into the ground, and the rock formation looks like that. So anyway, I just wanted to let people know, because I'm on the other channels as well, Telegram, so we've been sharing these sorts of things. So I suppose the
awesome.
question is, I don't so much see him. I do see him a little bit, but I more sort of feel him. So I feel like there's a ley line underneath the riverbed. So I'll get some photos, and anyway, I'll share them, and I just wanted to put that out there.
It's interesting, Grant. I have seen multiple examples of a combination of a road and a railway line and a riverbed. And there's a powerful portal in that space, massive. So I've seen other examples.
Well, this is the Todd River anyway, the famous Todd River that we know about here in Australia.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
So yeah, no worries. Oh, yeah, no worries. Thought I'd share that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I've just got a message from the festival organizer on next Friday. He's told me there's no screen. There's just hay bales and a microphone.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Right.
Now,
Oh,
Rachel, you've got the handy stuff, so you're gonna have to, unless you want to give the host back to me and I'll do it. You're the woman in the seat.
I wouldn't have a clue how to do that, Ben.
Okay, cool. All right. I've
Could
got
I ask a
another
question?
I've got another 30 minutes, so let's do this. So Caroline Lindo, what have you
Yeah.
got to say, my love? Crack on.
All right, thanks. I have a question because you call them ley lines, but they're circular. So I uh, I'm a little bit confused if they are lines or portals, because are they
Yes,
the
good
end
question.
of a line and they come from inside the earth, or are they more like tunnels? Because I feel a distinction between the two, and I just want to be clear on what we're talking about.
And there is, you're absolutely spot on. So sorry, I should have remembered to explain that. When I teach the course, I've got a bit of a script that I work on, so I know what I'm talking about, and I keep all the information. So they are tunnels of energy, 3D linear concentrations, as Rory Duff describes them. So when you're standing in the cross section of a ley line, it appears like a circle in front of you, but you're just seeing cross sections of it as it moves along through the landscape. Where they cross, however, you will get a sphere of energy. And unfortunately, because I'm limited by my abilities to depict that on a two-dimensional space, it'll just look like a circle. But you're absolutely positive, absolutely correct. It is a linear concentration, so it's like a long tunnel.
Yes, so that's why I think it's easier to see. For me, it's really hard to see on the pictures, whereas in the real world, it's like I don't even have to think about it, because it's it's super obvious. But on the pictures, it's just really hard to see. And just one other thing I would like to share about tunnels. The other day when I was driving through an actual tunnel through the mountain, I think I was coming from France to Spain, and I felt such a horrifying feeling in that tunnel, and I felt like, wow, I would really love to get out of my car right now and do a ceremony here, because something really negative energy. And then suddenly I had this memory of these rituals that they sometimes do when they open a tunnel. They do these huge shows with satanistic stuff and everything, and then I was like, whoa, but that's so intense, because you can't actually stop in an underground tunnel. So I would love for more people to think about how we can actually address these lines, because they're really hard to reach. And I don't feel that from the top of the mountain you can actually really, I mean, of course you can do distant healing, but I don't know, it's
it would require actually forcing the entities in that space out and into the direction that they should be in, because a lot of these entities get called into those tunnel spaces intentionally by idiot humans, and they're stuck and they're not happy about it. And so as each person travels through that tunnel, they're getting energy from them. So yeah, no wonder you picked up on it.
The dark I had to clear my car with music.
Yeah, well done. The darkest entities that exist, the otherworldly entities that exist with us, are usually underground, darkest, most powerful. That's why they do some of these tunnel, underground rituals, because that's where the most powerful of these entities are.
Brilliant. Caroline, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Rachel, is there an argument here for kind of understanding? Sorry, guys, could you mute when you're not, and all that kind of? I really don't want to be a Zoom Nazi. I apologize. Is there an argument for perhaps groups of individuals getting together in the loosest term, and concentrating focus on sites like that? Could we? Because I don't know if she's on here at the moment, but there's a very kind lady who's offered to help with the website. And one of the things that I really want to get out of the website is some sort of geo-mapping tool where people can go, right, done there, that's been done, and we can start moving on through this realm ultimately. Is there an argument for getting people together, perhaps on a Zoom, do guided meditations, guided focus thinking, healing on specific areas? Is that something that would actually affect, that would achieve the mission? Putting it.
Absolutely. 100%. And I know of people who do it. In fact, there's somebody in this group that actually contacted me recently to say that they're doing just that. So it's about the intent. So just like you can do remote healing, you don't have to be in the location.
Yeah.
Some people can do that, 100%. And it's interesting when you sing together, I've talked about this many times, heartbeats synchronize. And so you can have a synchronization with people singing together or utilize, using vocalizations in many different locations all across the world on a Zoom, but you're all still going to have that heartbeat synchronization because you're singing together or ululating together or whatever it is that you're going to be doing. So that's another concentration and connection, a way of connecting everybody from a distance. So great question, Ben.
Cool. So Trevor, thank you very much for telling us you're already doing that activity. I kind of what I'm thinking when you were talking about that is, whilst there may be distance in this realm, in reality, in the energy plane, you and I, Rachel, right now we could be sitting next to each other. And indeed, if our intention as energy beings, regardless whether we're on a Zoom or we're face to face, we can be sat next to each other anyway. So that's certainly, if there's any planning whizzes out there who would be interested in that sort of task. And what I'm talking about there is really planning a mode of operation whereby we are ticking these sites off and we're getting people on Zoom, these sorts of things. I'm attending one of Rory Duff's events in real life, as it were, quote unquote, at Oliver's Castle near Devizes in Wiltshire next Wednesday, which is going to be a guided meditation or a targeted group meditation to work with the Leys.
Brilliant.
And I think if we can replicate that physically, we'll call that operations, on the ground operations, or whether we can do it remotely. Either way, we've got to do something as a collective to kickstart this. We get lots of lovely messages. I'm blown away by the messages we get through the website, which are "I want to help," and my response, we're not able to get back to everybody. I make it sound like we've got a fucking fan club. It's ridiculous. But obviously Rachel and I have businesses and families and these sorts of things. Whilst I love the expression I want to help, I would love to push that back to people as a question to ask oneself, what can I do to help? The idea of today is to equip you with certain tools to get out there and do something. And it doesn't really matter what it is, as Rachel says, as long as you do something with that intent of love in your heart, it's going to help achieve the mission. So to anybody asking the question, how can I help? I would push that back to you with love and say, ask yourself the question, how can I help? You know, as JFK, who may or not be alive, we're not sure, said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So I would replace country with humanity, etc., etc. So that's one to think about. So again, please do come to me with these ideas. Please do come to us with these ideas. And it's a little unfair, but in the volunteer environment, if you have the idea, you generally get to do the idea. So bear that in mind before you speak up. We do need doers, not just sayers. We really do. Right. So Sue Smith, please do unmute yourself and let us have your question.
Hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to share that I actually spent the day today at a friend's with her on a property, and we went around to try and find the Leys. Now she took me to a few special places, and then I would take the photos, and I said, "Can you see that?" And she was seeing it straight away. So I feel like that's really good.
Yeah,
She's
well
a big
done.
person, big part in her community, very popular, and hopefully we might be able to get more people on board. Even, you know, I like doing the boots on the ground type thing and going around to people's places and seeing, trying to help them see it and feel it. She's also a singer, and I was with her in a choir group many years ago, so we're trying to get that back up and running again. But hopefully, maybe with this sort of focus.
Beautiful, Sue. Well done. I'm so pleased. It's such a beautiful thing when you get to share this with somebody and they can actually see it, because you know you're having an effect. Because once you see a ley line for yourself out in nature, you never can not see them again. That you can see them all the time. Oh, that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank
It
you
was
very
good,
much.
really good. I just wanted to ask something else about mountains and radiating lines from mountains. Is that what happens? So I'm
Great.
guessing it's granite small
Yeah,
mountain,
and
like
I still don't know everything, unfortunately, and I probably never will. What I
yeah,
do know is there are a lot of sacred sites that involve mountains. So I am assuming that's something to do with the pressure in that area, the tectonic plate movements, because when you've got particularly, you know, mountains that are created through volcanic eruptions, you've got pressure and you've got, you
yeah,
know, the tectonic plates moving in that area. So you're going to have more piezoelectric energy forcing up through that space. So again, Mangere Mountain in New Zealand's known for it. Castle Hill's known for it. There's lots and lots of different places. Wilpena Pound's got mountains all around it that
yeah.
in Australia that's, you know, highly significant. So that's another area that we need people who know those sorts of things to come in and share that information, hopefully, with us all.
Yeah, so that picture, the portal, that we're looking at my property, and there's another picture that I shared in the group that you said that there's Leys. When I stand down on the ground and I look directly east, it's there's a mountain, the top of the mountain. That's I'm in and that
Wow.
is not far. Like if you keep going, you'll come across to where the portal is on the other property. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah,
I
you've got a
can't go
beautiful.
over to the other property because I don't know those people. So I mean, I'd like to see yeah what I could experience over there, but yeah. But at the moment, I'm just looking at it.
Well, thank you, darling, and thank you again for letting me share your pics because they're spectacular.
Right.
Have you not considered knocking on the door and telling them that we're part of a collective consciousness about to go through a great awakening and you'd like to come on their
Oh,
property? Ley lines.
yeah, I'm still building up that confidence of having people. Geez, this
Fair
is
enough.
crazy. Talking about Leys.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll all get there.
Getting there.
That's the beauty of this. Thank you very much, Sue. Damien Hadjiti, you look too cool for school, brother, and I love your name. What's going down?
Hey, I had an interesting insight while I've been listening, and I've been doing my own process to sort of connect in and work with the energy lines. But sort of something popped in, and this might already be happening. You might already be doing this. But the insight that I had was, if this is linking into sound and powerful points, the thing that seems the most obvious is the whales. As an ally, as a whole collective that we could be tapping into. It's almost like if you don't ask, you don't get. And sorry, my cat.
I love that the cat's getting involved.
He knows. He knows.
Punctuating the point. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'm just thinking, I'm not sure whether that's something that you're already tapping into, but something just sort of popped in while I was listening. I thought that could be really amazing to sort of to link into that while we're kind of all connecting in, and they can do their work from the power points in the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, and I believe that they do that, and I believe that their song, the obviously the sonic waves and all the everything that they produce is part of healing the ley lines, and I think this is another reason why they've been so persecuted. I think it's another reason why we see all these beaching experiences where they obviously the pods beach. I think that things get messed up intentionally by humans to eradicate them to a certain degree because they are extremely intelligent and extremely powerful. And their song is probably more powerful than anything that any human, well, it would be more powerful than anything that any human can produce. I know of others that are very much tuned into what the whales are doing. Madeline Holmes and Madeline Doherty, sorry, and Dale Holmes specifically are very much into that side of things. It's not something that I've looked into enough to know what I'm talking about, but it's something that I do when I look into more deeply. So thank you. Very good point.
Well, in the spirit of they always tell us, and they always hide it in plain sight. I don't know if anyone here remembers the late 80s film Star Trek 4, A Voyage Home, and I am going somewhere with this, where an alien craft comes to the future Earth and starts reeling off whale song. And because human beings have killed off the whales, there's no one to return. to return the message. So Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, who may well drink baby's blood, I'm not sure, they go back in time to 1984. They get some whales taken back, and the whales return the call, and the aliens kind of fuck off and try not to destroy the world, which is quite nice. And I know that's a spurious point, but there are two things I should make a point about. A, it's a really good movie. And B, they do always hide it in plain sight, don't they, Rach?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Pamela Adcock, it doesn't matter you can't sing. Don't worry about it. Although every human being can learn to sing. Honestly, you're being programmed if someone had told you you can't sing. But you can take tuning forks into the Leys and the portals. And also you can take, going back to the 1980s, you can take a ghetto blaster, and you can play very loud Time to Rise, the Lay Love Down song, which is tuned 432 hertz as well. But that's a resource, that's a weapon of mass spirituality to be used as well. Chloe Brown, what did you say? You said something really nice. Oh, you went to Shelley Beach, Nambucca, with lots of quartz and used a singing bowl and sang, and a family of dolphins came to play.
Oh, wow. I'm
But
not
the
surprised.
dolphins were there at the beginning. I'm very aware of that. The dolphins were there at the beginning. I think they helped at the beginning. We shall see. Thank you so much for that. Trevor, the man with a red admiral on his cheek. Please do unmute yourself and speak, my brother.
Nice to see you in England, bro.
Thanks very much, man. How are you?
I'm 2 hours south of Darwin, which is Northern Territory, Northern Australia.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Really interested in what Rachel is presenting on, and I quickly, or I saw a little bit of something that I think the guy's name was Dale. She just mentioned before, but I didn't watch the whole thing. So I joined up tonight to see more. I've been actively involved in singing on the songlines for the last 20 years, and I work with other Indigenous people with Dig and song. And so if you folks want to do another session, I'm happy to share what the blackfellas have been doing for tens of thousands of years and what we're doing. So I'll put it this way. All portals are vortexes. Not all vortexes are portals. We have many different types of vortexes, and we use them for different singing and or other activities. But basically, when you're talking about the crystals and the quartz, you see the silicon chip. It's based on silicon. The most abundant element in the Earth's crust is silicon. So these songlines are not just on the surface, they're underneath it all over the place. Sometimes they breach the ground, especially if they cut roads through and stuff. And people, we get asked to go and douse places. You never get asked unless there's a problem. And quite often I see where they've actually breached and it's going straight through their bedroom and they can't sleep. And as soon as we get there, we say, oh, you can't sleep here, right? And they go, yeah, that's what we asked you to come here for. I said, well, look at this. And now another thing is that with seeing them with your eyes, that's good. And there are many other things you can see with your eyes. Standing, what I refer to as standing vortexes. So, for example, one day we were dousing a place near Mullumbimby, and we were walking through the scrub, and about 60 meters away, I said, oh, you got a spring over there. And they looked at me. We hadn't been to that side of the block yet. They looked at me and they said, how'd you know that? I said, I can see it. I can see the vortex on top coming out of the trees. A particular type of vortex tells me that's a spring. Anyway, the thing is that you put a blindfold on and you can feel these things a lot easier than what you can see them. So I do this with little kids when I worked in early childcare. I put a blindfold on and I put all sorts of things in front of them, behind them, beside them. I do it with adults as well. I take adults onto vortexes. We got morphing vortexes that we take people to that are a certain level, because they're actually like a portal, but they're not a full portal. And I've been into full portals where I've been from the eastern seaboard in Australia into South America. And the guy said, keep going. I said, no, I've gone far enough, I can see. And when I came out of that, I told him what I could see. And I asked him, what's that big blue stone? And then he was totally astounded. He took me up into his loft and went through all these photographs to find these photos that he took where the tour guides won't take you, but because he senses he knew something was there, so he booked the tour the next day as well. Wait till the group get ahead. Then he went over the hill and he took the photos. And the photo, pretty much exactly what I drew, was in the photo, and that's where it came out. And anyway, all this and more. But when it comes to changing the consciousness, just remember the crystalline structure. In modern or English language terms, I've been referring to this as the memory field, because that's the best way to translate it from Indigenous system. So the Mother Earth is a big computer. And so modern computers utilize silicon for the same thing, you know, that it's not just the processor, it's actually the store. You put a signal, you mentioned piezoelectric rocks before, Rachel, and that's all that type of thing that's happening there. So what we're doing on the Bora, we don't use the word Bora rings, that's an English terminology. It's Bora or Bora ground, and Bora is only one word. That's from the eastern seaboard. You go around country, different language mob got different name for same fella. And but anyway, what we're doing, that's a particular vortex which is the same as the keypad on your computer, or one letter of a keypad on your computer. Okay, so what you're using the conscious intent, we're stamping the feet on the ground, we're doing the ceremony, we're singing. It's always song, because song is easy to remember. Okay, and we're putting the conscious intent into the ground. So there are a lot of different types of ceremonies all around the country, but the basis of them, when you boil them all down, the essence of them are that we are singing to maintain balance of the natural world, because that's what we love. That's what we're a part of. Okay, it's syncretic thinking. And how that works is that when you see the rock, the sky, the water, the plants, all the animals, all the other human beings and you come together to form the whole, then you know that together you are whole. And then you know that whatever you do to anything else, you're invariably doing to self. Okay, now I posted a little thing, a couple of things back there in the chat about some of the main topics when I do the presentation. So since the lockdowns, I haven't been able to travel. I had to lose my job as senior tour guide. I used to walk people through the bush and tune them into all this stuff. But then they said, you got to have big jabs. I said, you can go jump. So I came bush. I'm now living in a tent, and this is the container that I use for a kitchen, and in the bush. And you're welcome to come and visit anytime, folks. But if you want me to come on with Rachel and do a whole lot of more stuff, what blackfellas do, because I've been to France, Germany, Britain, or England, and up at I think it's New Hebrides. I forgot the name of the island there with all the standing stone. And I've doused all through there, and I've been with mob there, and I said, oh, this, and they look at me, and I've never been there before, and I'm telling them all the history, because it's a memory field. So when you go into these places, you get the memory. So what we're doing when we're singing on these places, and is really important now, to get rid of all that satanic stuff that's being loaded in there. The conscious intent is the correct thing. You do not consent, you do not consent, you do not consent to all the BS, right? And you're putting in the love, because that is the memory field.
Really?
Okay? There's a lot more to explain it, you know, with cymatics and everything else, but essentially it's a memory field. And why is memory so important? I'll tell you a blackfellow story. You look at the rock, you look away, you look back at the rock, you're still there. Why? Because it can remember what it is. Okay, so without memory, nothing can come into being, nor can it persist in being. You need memory. So we got all the drawings from tens of thousands of years ago, painted in rock art up here. It shows you the LORE, which contains the LAW. A lot of people don't fully understand the differences between those words in English language. And so I got that stuff. I can pull it up, because I've done Zoom presentations since I've not been able to be on country in America, in Europe, and here in Australia. So I've got all the slides and everything already. So if you're wanting to
fantastic, thank you, Trevor.
Join up and we do something like that, I'm happy, because we know that we have valuable knowledge, and this needs to be shared. That's what we do. We present. We don't teach. We don't lecture. We're not involved in education. We're all that invariably forms of indoctrination of dogma, not necessarily so, but you can see the English language is the most what do you call it? The insidious.
Exactly. It's
What do you call
spell.
it?
It's spellbinding.
Magic
Exactly. Yeah.
stuff. So we present. And Blackfellow Way, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. You are free to be you. Okay. So, but if you don't get it, then you got to face LAW, because in other words, if you break LAW, then you got to face the consequences. But you learn pretty quickly. Respect means to look at again. Spectacle, you wear spectacles, a spectacle takes place in front of you. Respect means to, and when they say respect the elders, it means to look again at what the elders are saying, because they know. They already made the mistakes, they already know. That's the essence of the word respect, is that, to look at again. Okay. So anyway, folks, if you're happy to do a session and share a whole lot more, give a greater understanding of the mechanisms in the third dimensional matrix, and also to some degree how it's been affected by entities in the fourth dimensional that push back down here. And they actually exist in the fifth dimension, but the 5 is the balance. And I can go through all that after as well. So, but because it's balanced in the 5, they got no effect. So they come back to the fourth, which is right choice. Well, it's actually choice. That's where the cross is. It's choice. But Blackfellow Way, we say right choice. And then they make choices there in the fourth dimension, and they want to come down and impose in the third dimension. So there's all of that stuff and more. That's probably too much involved. But the basic mechanics of what happens on a magneto-electric playing field with the memory field, I'm able to explain that with science stuff as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I really appreciate you sharing that. And everything that you've said makes perfect sense to me. I'm hoping that you're signed up on the website.
You're using words. I'm good. They know what they're talking
about. Privately, so we can email each other, so we can organise something. So, are you signed in on the website? Your email? Don't give it out now.
I'm on the Telegram. No, okay. I'm on the Telegram. So if you personally connect with me on the Telegram, I'll give you the my email. Yeah.
Brilliant.
And my phone number.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
That's absolutely made my day. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Alice, my love. What's the name of the garment you're wearing? Is it a poncho?
Yes, it's a poncho.
That's fucking rad.
It's probably from Olivia or something. It was a gift. I live in the tiny shack in the freezing cold, and yeah, it's really great. I was a bit nervous to talk, so I nearly unlifted my hand. Anyway, I had a question. I've been learning from an Aboriginal man, and he teaches to me about not calling other beings into yourself when you're doing anything, actually. A lot of what he talks about is that your spirit is the most important thing, and anytime you're engaging with something outside of your spirit, you don't actually know what it is, and it can trick, a lot of those beings can be tricky. So it's a question more for you, Rachel, and just as a thing for the group, and as a question for us as a group, like, sure, there's nature beings and we feel and experience them, but it's just about, like, because if we're working against satanic groups that would be calling in all of these beings, and those beings may even be present still in the area, I'm just thinking from a perspective of being clear that it come from our heart and our spirit, and I just wanted to bring that into the conversation, if I'm making sense.
Okay, and that's a very good point. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. I was very nervous to say all that.
That's all right, darling. You've done well. You've presented yourself very well.
Thank you.
In the course that I teach, the first aspect of the course that I teach is about energetic protection. And that is why, part of the reason why I think it's a really good idea to go in with positive intent and some sort of musical connection with the earth, is that music can be very protective, particularly 432 hertz. So that is actually a very valid point, and I really appreciate you pointing it out. You don't want to go into these areas and just invite all these entities to come and communicate with you. the important part is to be conscious of them showing the ley lines and being aware of where the ley lines are. But I always teach use energetic protection when you go into those spaces. One course member taught me, Murphy, she taught me to actually ask permission before I go into the space also. And once I learnt that, and I didn't do that one time, I got a gut punch. And so I learnt the lesson. So every time I go into that space now, I ask for permission, I put my energetic protection around me, and then I step in.
Yeah,
So
because I
thank
guess
you.
it was whether, you know, if we were, not, you know, not calling other things into ourselves, you know, be just our spirit and that protection, and just be cautious of, that was sort of as well what I was coming from. But that's a really great point. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Darla.
Thanks, everyone. Much love. See
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
So
Well
listen
done.
to your Uncle Ben, listen to your Auntie Rachel, always use protection. So, I'm going to say Ms. Sheridan, and you're going to tell me how I pronounce your first name. Ms. S, you're on. Though not quite yet. The lips
There we
move.
go.
Ah, yes.
Nari.
Everybody.
Nari, silent G. Can you hear me?
How do we say your first name?
Nari.
Nari. Brilliant.
Nari or Nari, depending on where you're from.
Beautiful.
Don't
We're
mind the
friends now,
sheep.
Nari. When I see you next time, I shall know you. How can we help?
Oh, thanks, Ben. I'm on a little island off Adelaide called Kangaroo Island. I'm friends with Rachel for a few years now. But I was just going to say Rachel courts are really powerful places as well, like as in dark as well, just so people knew that as well. And Dale Holmes, I don't know if you've seen the latest one with Donovan and, oh geez, what's his name? He's talking about the shrine. Powerful. And the grids are called, I did send you, and correct me because I'm wrong, but Talic energy grids are the energy of the earth, like the current.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to and in response to Alice, is it? If we're on a ley line and we keep our vibrations high, and I've noticed hair as well is like a aerial, like a sense to I get like tingly hair and stuff, but in warriors they have long hair as well because they're like a receptor, like an aerial. But yeah, I just wanted to be quick. Anyway, good. Thanks, Rachel, for inviting me. And thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
And that's a really good point that's been made. Sorry, Ben, that the courts are always on, that the law courts, LAW courts are always on the crossing of powerful ley lines too, because they use that energy against us. And I know of family law magistrates that come in and knock 3 times before they come into their own chamber, and that is a form of demonic satanic ritual before they come in and destroy someone's life in the family courts. Yes, very good point.
Well, if you look at the etymology of the words, ultimately a solicitor is a Satan. So yes, all the cult of Satan, all in the same club. I'm about to lose battery, Rachel. So if I disappear, that's why. But Camilla, you're very welcome, friend. How can we help? This is like a radio. This is a radio. We should do a radio show, Rachel. I've just decided. Sorry, Camilla. Please go ahead, my love.
I live in southern Brazil, next to forest. And when I first came here, I always seeing faces in the forest at my corner's eye. I was really afraid to look at them because maybe I'm a little bit insane. I don't know. And then I started seeing your videos, and I think last week was the first time I relaxed and intently looked at the forest and to recognize the faces, to see the faces now. And at first I saw some of them were a little bit scared. And then I thought to myself, calm down, everything's okay. And from then on, I'm seeing smiling faces and like really happy faces in the trees. And I don't know, I live in a valley region and next to a mountain as well. And how could I keep on, I don't know, I try to say as in gentle words to them, and I lived next to ancient roads as well.
Wow.
I've been singing also the song, the Ley Line song, because I have how can I say it in English? The feel that I do live over a ley line right here. And then you said about protection and this kind of things I can do to raise the vibration of the place where I am, because around here there we have neighbors. Most of them are old neighbors and too sickly. And I do intend to raise the vibration of the place, because so much people around here getting were sick when we came here and keep on getting sick and sick.
Which is a really good point. So there are some, so if you read, and obviously there might be an issue with reading English, but Rory Duff does describe that there are certain ley lines called Curry-Hartman lines that can be negatively affecting over long periods. So you don't want to sleep in them, you don't want to work in them for long periods. They're some of the smaller lines. And that was what the Witches Grove photographs that I was showing with some of the, I think the smaller, the Hartman or Curry lines. So there are some that can be negatively affecting. I do know of some individuals who can clear them and change that frequency somehow. That's not my expertise and I don't know about it, but there might be someone in your local area who has some sort of understanding around that. I'm glad that the entities that you're seeing are not frightening. It's interesting what you said about seeing them out of the corner of your eye. One thing I do teach also is that there is a different combination of cones and rods in the retina, the human retina, that pick up ultraviolet and infrared light, different aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum, where these entities tend to exist also. So when people see ghosts and otherworldly entities, they'll often see it out of the corner of their eye as well as the spirit of the forest. So I guess with relation to the people around you that seem to be unwell, which could be a correlation with some of the layers in the area, it would require you to put your feelers out and find out if you know of anybody who could do some clearing work. For some people, apparently, it's just as simple as getting some organ energy. You know, someone with expertise in that would be able to help you with that. But I know we're running out of time, aren't we, Ben? So we can't really sort of cover that too deeply. We probably need to wrap up pretty quickly. But thank you, Camilla. I hope that that sort of answers the question and helps in some way.
A good friend of mine lives in the Isle of Wight, which is an island off the south of England specifically, and there's a lot of ley lines that go through there. It's used by good and bad alike. If you know his work, David Icke lives there, and he lives there for a specific reason. She lives on a ley line in a lovely farm, and she's fine with it, but the guy that she bought the house off couldn't live there. Well, he lived there for 10 or 15 years and really didn't like it, and for whatever reason didn't move. So a lot of it will depend on you. I don't know exactly the part of you that it would depend on, whether you're susceptible to energies, etc., etc. But some people can deal with it, some people can't. In terms of organ generators, there are lots of commercially available organ generators. I've got one that sits by my daughter's cot, by my wife, by me. Which are just kind of crafted stones. So just Google organ generator and you'll be able to pick one up. Brilliant. I think that's everybody. So I always question why we don't do these calls as much as we do, and it's all about time we can put in and these sorts of things. But every call we ever do, I always leave with a new energy and a new focus for what we're doing. So this has been recorded. We'll be able to relive this and look back, because this is going to be a worldwide movement. Rachel knows this, and she can talk to you about why another time perhaps, but this will be a worldwide movement, and you are here at the beginning. So for that, we thank you. We appreciate love you. We don't appreciate hate you. And we love you. So thank you so much. Please do reach out on the website. Jim in particular, without sounding too creepy and like a CCP agent, I do have your email address because you registered on Zoom. I'm sorry if that sounds quite invasive, but it's the truth. I know where you live. No, you told me actually. We'll just look at container on Google Earth. We'll look for it. But anyway, we'll be in touch because we'd love to get you on and do perhaps what I'm thinking, Rachel, is a curated discussion between you two. I think that would be awesome. And
Awesome.
I can be in the middle asking really stupid questions. So go well. Thank you very much. Remember the mission. Save the world, save the ley line, save the world. Remember the method, just to drive. It's so good that I've forgotten what it is. What's the method? Charge the Leys with positive energy, i.e. love, the end state, dark to light. Remember this day, mark it well. This is where it starts, or, well, where it begins, probably. This is the end. Beginning of the beginning. And as you can tell, I've not had much sleep in the last couple of weeks. So thank you very much. Much love. Go well. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.